I want you to take a second and think about the last time you felt truly, deeply overwhelmed by your money. Maybe it wasn't a massive crisis. It usually isn't. It's more of a low-grade hum in the back of your mind. It's that feeling when you open your banking app and see a dozen small transactions you don't quite remember making. It's the subscription you forgot to cancel, the credit card balance that's just a little higher than you expected, or the realization that despite working harder than you ever have, your savings account looks exactly the same as it did 6 months ago. We've been told that the solution to this feeling is more. More income, more side hustles, more complex investment strategies, more tracking, more spreadsheets. But I've started to realize that the weight we feel isn't actually caused by a lack of money. It's caused by the complexity we've allowed to build up around it. We've turned our financial lives into a second full-time job, and frankly, we're exhausted. What if the path to being forever stable wasn't about doing more, but about doing much, much less? What if the most powerful financial move you could make today wasn't picking a winning stock, but simply clearing the clutter out of your brain? I want to talk about a few minimalist money rules that have changed everything for me. These aren't just tips for your wallet, they are guardrails for your sanity. You see, we live in a culture that treats financial stability like a math problem. If A plus B equals C, then you're successful. But money isn't math. Money is psychology. It's emotion. It's the way your heart rate spikes when a bill comes in, or the way you feel a temporary rush of dopamine when you buy something new to escape a stressful week at work. Most of the rules we're taught are designed for robots, not for people who get tired or bored or tempted. When we try to follow those rigid, complex systems, we eventually fail. And when we fail, we feel guilty. That guilt leads to avoidance, and avoidance is where real financial disasters are born. Minimalist money isn't about deprivation. It's about removing the friction between you and the life you actually want to live. It's about moving from a state of constant management to a state of simple, quiet existence. The first rule I had to learn, and perhaps the hardest one to accept, is what I call the rule of one. We've been conditioned to believe that more options lead to better outcomes. We have 3 different checking accounts, 4 credit cards for the points, 2 brokerage accounts, and a high-yield savings account we opened because an ad told us to. We think we're being optimized, but what we're actually doing is creating a massive cognitive load. Every account you own is a mental open loop. It's something you have to check, monitor, and remember the password for. In a minimalist system, you strive for the power of one primary bank, one main credit card, one simple investment strategy. When you collapse your financial life into a single point of focus, the fog begins to lift. You no longer have to play money Tetris on payday, moving funds around like a frantic accountant. You just let it sit. You give your brain permission to stop calculating and start living. I remember talking to a friend who was stressed about his finances despite making a great salary. When we looked at his setup, he had 7 different buckets for his money. He was so busy managing the buckets that he didn't realize the water was leaking out of all of them. By the time we consolidated it down to 1, he told me it felt like he had literally offloaded a physical weight from his shoulders. That's the psychological ROI of minimalism. Then there's the rule of intentional friction. We live in a world designed to make spending invisible. With one-click ordering and biometrics, money leaves our lives before our brains even register that a transaction has occurred. It's too easy. Minimalist money rules require us to put the friction back in. I started doing this thing where I don't save my credit card information on websites. If I want to buy something, I have to physically get up, find my wallet, and type in those 16 digits. It sounds small, almost silly, but in those 30 seconds it takes to find my card, my prefrontal cortex, the logical part of my brain, usually catches up with my impulsive heart. I'll find myself standing in the hallway, card in hand, asking, do I actually want this, or am I just bored? Most of the time, I put the card back. Stability is rarely about the big raises. It's about the 1,000 small, invisible no's that happen in the privacy of your own home. This leads us to a deeper psychological concept, the distinction between your standard of living and your quality of life. We often confuse the two. A standard of living is the stuff you have, the square footage, the car lease, the brand of clothes. Quality of life is how you feel when you wake up on a Tuesday morning. It's the absence of dread. The minimalist rule here is to fix your standard of living while your income grows. We're taught to level up every time we get a promotion. New job, new car. Big bonus, bigger house. We call it lifestyle creep, but I think of it more like a treadmill that keeps getting faster. No matter how hard you run, you stay in the same place emotionally. If you can decide right now what enough looks like, you gain a superpower. If you decide that a modest apartment and a reliable older car are your baseline, and you refuse to move that baseline even when your paycheck doubles, you create a gap. That gap is where your freedom lives. That gap is the buffer that allows you to quit a toxic job, or take a 3-month sabbatical, or help a family member in need. Wealth isn't the ability to buy more. It's the ability to say, I'm okay right here. I want to talk about the clean slate mindset. This is a rule about how we handle our past mistakes. Most of us carry around financial shame like a backpack full of rocks. We think about the debt we took on in our 20s or the investment we lost money on, and we let that shame dictate our future. We feel like we're bad with money, so we act like someone who is bad with money. Minimalism is about stripping away the stories we tell ourselves. You have to be able to look at your bank account today and treat it as a fresh start. The money that's gone is gone. It's a sunk cost. Every dollar you have right now is a new employee that you get to assign a task to. When you stop looking backward at what you should have done, you find the clarity to see what you can do right now. Stability is a forward-facing exercise. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds great, but I have real bills. I have rent that's going up and kids who need shoes. How does minimalism help when the math doesn't add up? That's where the rule of the essential comes in. In the world of design, minimalism isn't about having a white room with one chair. It's about making sure that everything in the room serves a purpose or brings you joy. Your budget should be the same. I want you to look at your expenses through a very specific lens. Not, is this a want or a need, because those definitions are too blurry. Instead, ask, does this expense actually reduce my stress, or does it add to it? We often spend money to solve problems that the spending itself is creating. We work long hours to pay for a house we're never in, and then we spend money on expensive takeout and convenience services because we're too tired from working to cook or clean. It's a closed loop of exhaustion. When you apply minimalist rules, you might find that by cutting the convenience spending, you don't need the overtime income. Suddenly, you have more time, and time is the ultimate minimalist currency. When you have time, you can cook a real meal, you can go for a walk, you can think. You move from being a consumer to being a person. The practical side of this is surprisingly simple. Automate the boring and manualize the meaningful. Automate your savings, your bills, and your investments. Set them up so they happen without you having to touch them. This removes decision fatigue. If you have to decide to save every month, eventually you'll have a bad month and you'll decide not to. But if it happens in the background, it becomes part of the scenery. It just is. On the flip side, manualize the spending that brings you joy. If you love travel or coffee or books, don't just put them on a recurring subscription. Engage with that spending. Feel the weight of it. This keeps you connected to the value of your money. It prevents you from becoming numb to the resources you're trading your life energy for. As you start to follow these rules, something strange happens. You start to feel a sense of quietness. You aren't checking the markets every hour. You aren't comparing your lifestyle to a stranger's Instagram feed. You're just stable. The turning point for me was realizing that money is just a tool to buy back your time. That's it. It's not a scorecard. It's not a measure of your human being. It's a battery that stores your effort so you can use it later to buy freedom. If you have too many gadgets plugged into that battery, too many debts, too many subscriptions, too much house, too much ego, the battery drains instantly. But if you keep your load light, that battery lasts a long time. It gives you the power to say no to things that don't serve you and yes to the things that do. I want to leave you with a reflection on progress. Sometimes when we talk about minimalism or financial rules, we feel like we have to do it perfectly. We feel like if we buy one impulsive thing, we've failed. But minimalism isn't a destination, it's a practice. It's a constant process of editing. Your life will get cluttered again. It's the nature of the world we live in. New temptations will arise, your circumstances will change, and you'll find yourself back in that feeling of overwhelm. That's okay. The goal isn't to never have a mess. The goal is to know how to clean it up. When you feel that familiar hum of anxiety returning, just come back to the basics. Collapse the complexity. Reintroduce the friction. Define your enough. You don't need a more complicated life to be happy. You probably need a simpler one. Stability isn't found in the accumulation of things or the mastery of complex systems. It's found in the quiet moments when you realize that you have everything you need and you aren't afraid of losing it. So, tonight, maybe don't look at a spreadsheet. Don't look at a stock chart. Just look at your life. Ask yourself what you can put down. Ask yourself what you can let go of. Because the lighter you travel, the further you can go. Take a breath. You're doing better than you think. Progress isn't about being perfect. It's about being a little more intentional today than you were yesterday. And that is a rule anyone can follow.